Hare Krishna, welcome to the live session of Bhagavad Gita as it is. We're on chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, and we have covered up to verse 29 in this chapter, and we'll be covering verses 30 to 39. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Verse 30. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sache me na pranashyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Verse 31. Sarva bhutastathim sthitam yo mam bhajte katva masthitah sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Verse 32. Atma upamyen sarvatra samam pashyati yo Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukham sa yogi paramo matah. He is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna, verse 33, Arjunuvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktah samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatva sthitiam sthiram. Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Verse 34. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramathi balvad dridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriv sudushkaram. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling wind. Verse 35. Shri Bhagavan uvacha asamshayam mahabaho manodur nigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha griyate. Lord Krishna said, O mighty Yam, son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Sorry for the misreading there. Verse 36. Asamyatatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi vashyatmana tu yutata shakyo avapatum upayatah. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Verse 37. Arjunuvacha ayati shraddhayo petu yoga chalita manasah aprapya yoga samsiddhim kam gatim Krishna gacchati. Arjun said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and does not attain the perfection in mysticism? Verse 38. Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas chinna braham ivanashati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pathi. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away both from the spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Verse 39. Etan me samshayam Krishna chetur mahasya sheshatah tvadanayah samshayasyasya chetana yupadyate. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely, but for you no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Okay, so we will continue from the verse 30 onwards. Krishna has been instructing Arjuna about the mind, how to control it. And he's been telling Arjuna about the Ashtanga Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga can be used nicely into this practice of mind control. But there is a clause. Krishna says you have to surrender to him, you have to offer all the activities and the results. Then only mind will become controlled, because mind has to serve either the inferior energy of the Lord, which is the Prakriti, the Maya, or the spiritual energy of the Lord. So we are the servant of Krishna in either case, either by serving the inferior energy or the superior energy. Now it is up to us what we want to choose, how we want to serve the Lord. So the onus is upon us. Like we have here the visuals of mayapur.tv, and we can see how the people are visiting the dhams, the holy dhams, and the dhamvasis who live there, who are actually serving the Lord all the time in their capacity in doing different services. So it's up to us how we want to employ our energies in the service of the Lord. In verse 30, Bhagwan is telling Arjun that one who sees Bhagwan everywhere, who sees the Supreme everywhere in everything, is never lost, and nor that person is lost to Krishna. He's explaining like the famous picture on the cover of the Bhagavad Gita, control of the senses. The senses are depicted as the horses, then rain is the intelligence. So we have to employ our intelligence in controlling our senses, and then only we'll be able to have some kind of control on our mind. Otherwise, our mind is going to go where the senses are going, or the mind will dictate the senses to enjoy what it wants to enjoy under a particular mode of nature, goodness, passion, or ignorance. So it's completely up to us what we want to do with our mind, because choices are there in front of us. Now how we use them is entirely up to us. Because Lord is always there in the heart as Paramatma, and Lord is never too far from us. We're always within his reach, and he can always see us. Now the point remains that how are we going to see him? That is the million-dollar question, we can say, in this case. Okay. Verse 31 says that a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that Bhagwan and Supersoul are one, that Bhagwan and Paramatma is one, remains always in Bhagwan in all circumstances. This is quite self-explanatory. Bhagwan is all-pervading, is everywhere. by his inconceivable potency. He is present everywhere as the sun. He is present everywhere at once. Prabhupada reminds us again and again in his purports. Vishnu is one, and yet he is pervading, all-pervading, everywhere. Verse 32, Bhagavan says that that person is a perfect yogi by comparison to his own self, sees a true equality in all beings, in both their happiness and distress. A person who is able to see that as he has got the part and parcel of Bhagavan as his Atma, similarly Bhagavan is there, as Paramatma, by his Atma, Bhagavan is there in each and every being, and he understands the pains and the comforts of the other beings as he understands his own. Once he starts to see everyone as souls coming from the Lord himself. So dealing with the mind is the main obstacle, Bhagavan tells us, in this yoga. The yoga of not just doing the hand, body postures and the breathing exercise, but the yoga of becoming one with the God. Mind is the main impediment or the block, because mind has its own dictations, and you have to bring the mind in some kind of discipline and control. Prabhupada is again reiterating that a yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man towards Krishna consciousness. And who else than such a perfect devotee than Srila Prabhupada in the recent history of mankind? So in verses 33 to 37, dealing with the mind, Bhagavan is going to listen to Arjun, what Arjun has to say, and Bhagavan will also give answers. Arjun says in verse 33 that, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical, he says to Bhagavan, and unendurable. Because Arjun admits that the mind is unsteady and restless. And he doesn't think that in this age of Kali, people can follow this system. In verse 34, he continues to say to Bhagavan that mind is so much restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, stubborn, in other words, and to try to control it or subdue is more difficult than trying to control the wind. So the course of wind can be controlled somehow, Arjun thinks, but the course of the mind is very difficult to control. It seems that the mind has got powers like God. And if you want to detach your mind, get detached from the mind, then you have to detach the mind from its own shenanigans, what it wants to enjoy, what it wants to follow. Then you have to employ mind in some direction, which is employing it into the hearing and of the holy names and the pastimes of Lord. Mind is actually as obstinate as Ravan from Ramayana and Duryodhan from Mahabharata. Because there is no other way to control the mind unless one is going to engage their mind fully, like it's very popular these days in psychology and then in general, motivation speaks and speakers and all the, the psychologists and therapists, they all use this word mindfulness. So it is said, it is prescribed that Sarve Manaha Krishna Padaravindayo, one must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. Only then there will remain no other engagements to agitate the mind, because otherwise mind is going to hanker over something or other, and the activities are going to agitate the mind. In verse 35, it is continued that you have to bring the mind back into control by detachment, by following the regulative principles, by avoiding the agitating activities. That's the only way. And you have to keep chanting daily and steadily, and of course mind will come into control. Now it all depends upon the memories stored in the bank of the mind from past lives. So more the memories to go through, and more it has to be purified, the more chanting has to be done. But it is doable, like every other activity in this world. Like we were saying yesterday, that practice will make us perfect. And mind likes a routine as well sometimes. Eating prasadam, hearing Lord's names, engaging all our senses in the service of Lord, looking at Bhagwan's beautiful forms, names, hearing his names, listening about his pastimes, discussing your realizations, what you have learnt through the scriptures. This is the only way. This is the only way that we will get ourselves delivered from the shackles of Maya in this world. In verse 36, we continue hearing Bhagwan who is saying here that for one whose mind is unbridled, who is uncontrolled, like a horse which is unbridled, hasn't got the bridle on, hasn't got the the bridle which is put on the horse before the rider mounts on it, and with reins and everything else. So if the mind is unbridled, the self-realization is difficult. But for a controlled mind which strives by appropriate means, it is assured of success. So Bhagwan declares here that unless we detach ourselves from the material side, it is difficult to achieve success in self-realization. Like they say, the famous saying in Hindi, when they say that if you are traveling in two boats together, you can't travel. So similarly, if your mind is traveling in two different boats of material life and is just traveling on the material life, it won't be possible for you. So you have to balance, because we need both for this life to go through this life. We need the material and spiritual success both, and we have to balance our act. We have to devote so many hours in our day for both properly, and actually live our lives as if it is just going around in orbits around the Lord Hari. Prabhupada uses the word pareshanubhava, which is spiritual satisfaction. So by doing the devotional service, we will achieve the spiritual satisfaction, just as a hungry person achieves the satisfaction by eating morsel of food. Slowly, by getting eating bit by bit, the hunger is satiated. Similarly, by doing the devotional service slowly, that calmness and the control will come to you. Verse 37, Bhagwan says that it continues to say that just the willpower is not going to be enough for us to control our mind. We will need to engage it in the thinking of Krishna, smaran, remembrance, thinking, contemplating about what we read, what we do, what we are doing about our devotional service, and how we are going to use everything in our life for the service of Lord. So in verse 37, Bhagwan says that the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes a process of self-realization, but later who desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. So where does such a yogi goes? So Bhagwan is telling us that it is very difficult in this day and age for us to do, but by following the mark of bhakti yoga, and following the guidance of the spiritual master, which is directly linking us to the God realization, is possible. Just by following the eightfold system of Ashtanga Yoga, the Bhakti Marg of yoga system, the Bhakti Marg is not possible. One has to be very sufficiently serious about following the process of bhakti, or then the transcendental path will be slowly achievable for a person, because you have to fight the illusory energy of material nature, which is all around us, all the time, in different forms. The conditioned soul is already fighting hard with the three modes of material nature, and Charita Manasa, deviation from the transcendental path, is also possible while you are trying to do the bhakti. So now Arjun is asking about the results of deviation from the path of the self-realization. What is that? If you forget who you are, what is your goal, and why you are here, then what is going to happen to such a person who is going to deviate from the path of self-realization? So from verse 38 onwards to verse 45, Krishna is going to tell us about this, that if the mind deviates, then the yogi's destination, what is going to be the yogi's destination, what is going to be the what is the determination of yogi? Krishna says in verse 38 that such a man who is bewildered from path of transcendence falls away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in sphere. So one who is going to fall down from transcendence, from the path of bhakti, is going to be successful in neither the material life nor the spiritual life. So there are two ways to progress in this life. There are materialists who have got no interest in transcendence, so they are only interested in the economic development or in the promotion or going up to the higher planets by, doing some pious works, by doing a lot of charity and everything. So they will achieve the heavenly planets. And then there are others who are only on the path of transcendence. Now these people, they cease all their material activities and they sacrifice all forms of material happiness. Prabhupada tells in the purports So if a aspiring transcendentalist, they fail, they'll lose both ways, in material and the spiritual success. So it is like a cloud which has got no rainwater. It's just there, it's just hanging there in the sky. The Krishna consciousness, the Bhakti Yoga, it is the direct path. And to reach the goal of life through Brahman and Paramatma realization takes place many births. Krishna will be telling us in a verse in the future chapters, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, that many births, after many births, one comes to the path of bhakti or the Krishna consciousness. So one should not take it lightly if one has come into the contact of the devotees and one who has got the study of Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. They should make most of it, because this is not just achieved due to the activities of one life, but many lives. Bhakti has actually compounded, has come together, has added on to bring us where we are. Because bhakti is the only account which is not finished. After the material life, it carries on with our souls from one life to another. Finally, in verse 31, Arjuna asks again, says, Krishna, I ask you dispel this doubt completely, but for you no one is to be found who can destroy the doubt. Arjun had taken Krishna as his guru, he had surrendered to him in chapter 2, and now he is again asking this to Krishna, that Krishna, please dispel my doubt, finish my doubt, and illuminate me, illuminate my mind, that how the living beings who have lived in the past, in the present, and in the future also, they will continue to have their individual identity in the future. So Arjun wants to know about the life of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who has failed. Now he's asking Krishna about it. Tomorrow, because Krishna is going to dispel the doubts about this unsuccessful transcendentalist up to verse, I think it's up to verse 45, sorry. So there's quite a bit left, and we will continue from here, from verse 40. I wish you all a very happy, blissful day ahead. Please watch Hare Krishna TV. There's so many programs coming, and everything related to Damodar month is there. There's so many channels on Mayapur.tv. Then there's Vrindavan.tv. Whenever you can find time in your daily schedule, sit together with your family, offer the lamps on, and please be safe wherever you are, because lockdown has begun in many countries at the moment again. And look after yourselves and your family. And winter is the time of actually to rejuvenate ourselves and to recharge ourselves, our batteries. So what better than just keep active, look after your physical side of the health, and your spiritual and mental well-being as well. So with these words, I'll take leave of you. Here's a beautiful darshans from Mayapur TV. 4 of the Ashtasakhis here. So these Rajapur deities of Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra. Hare Krishna everyone. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks for joining.